Hey guys, Matt Lighty here, and for 3.26 is coming up pretty soon. This is a little pre-video, I guess, because a large portion of the build wheel that I had planned for 3.26 has been done for 8 months, and I just kind of like changed a couple things, but also everything's subject to change in the patch notes. We've never had a scenario where we've had one league a year. This has been the largest break by far. So I'm kind of soft expecting the largest chunk of changes to be coming in 3.26, which means any amount of builds prepared for a build wheel prior to patch notes might be worthless, you know, because half these builds might be fucking dead, and there might be a whole litany of new skills and buffs, you know, that are up for usage. But I had builds planned, some of them, and a couple safe spots. However, I'm just going to fill the missing safe spots and then, as you know, probably change this build wheel, but I still wanted to just go through the process, I guess, in a video format, just to see what happens. So, like, an example of something, like, the only one here I really think, like, a Lightning Strike. Do I think a Lightning Strike needs to be nerfed? Not at all. It's like, there's no build and path at the moment that is truly offensive in my experience, and I've seen all of them, so nothing's been like, wow, that's crazy to level with, and in mid game, and in late game, and in hyper late game, and costs nothing, and can do all content, and is immortal. You know, nothing fits that bill at the moment. You have like this kind of holy quadrinity of, is the build accessible, cost efficient, crazy clear, crazy speed, crazy DPS, crazy, you know, IQIR, and can do all content in the game. Nothing fits that at the moment that doesn't cost a large sum of currency. Some of the better ones are like things like the mana, you know, Ice Nova shit. Like, I'm playing that in Settlers, and I have that to like level 99, and it's kitted out. But I don't have that on here because I just played, and I typically don't like to do something I played recently. So, for the most part, I typically choose fringe things, and that's acceptable, but literally everything here is subject to change. So this is like the faux build wheel before the real build wheel. I'm not even going to do the build wheel thing. We're just going to loosely cobble together the builds I have here. And then all of this might be totally irrelevant, in which case, if any of it changes, it'll just be another video that is way more put together and less haphazard than this one, but, you know, at least you could take a peek behind the curtain. So, I guess we'll fill out the last two I'm missing first, because it's a Scion and a Marauder. Now, there's a build in Marauder I haven't got to play yet. I spelled dual wrong, but it's dual strike of ambidexterity. It's a really, really cool build, I think, and there's a couple ways to play it. The one I like, is it trauma? Yeah, there's a trauma support version that exists. I think this is the one with Frost Breath, probably. Yeah, so this is like the base version, which utilizes Frost Breath in conjunction with Trauma to get free double damage, and then you get tons of Trauma stacks, which gives you tons of Flat Fizz, and on a Juggernaut, that Flat Fizz tickles you at most, and then you basically just, you know, walk around slapping things with a multi-striking, multi-splashing build, because at its core, dual strike of ambidexterity does something very simple. It does a bunch of damage with your main hand and a bunch of attacks with your offhand. So if you have any weapon in your offhand that's like 2.1 attack or higher, amazing, great, it's doing its job. And then your main hand is doing nothing but hitting hard and can be slow, which is why people use Frost Breath, because you put that in conjunction with the Mace Mastery that says all your damage with maces and scepters inflicts chill. Frost Breath says attacks with this weapon deal double damage to chill, i.e. you always do double damage. All that flat plus that attack speed, that's you're getting a bunch of damage. That's the basic formula. Nothing too complicated, right? So it actually functions really, really safely in a solo self-found setting, because Frost Breath is a very low tier unique. Let's look it up together. I always recommend just checking P.O Ladder for an idea of what a tier of something is. Because it's just like an easy way of finding things. Frost Breath, tier 4. Tier 4 and 5 mean it's dropping super frequency, meaning you're probably going to find one of these mapping every hour on the hour. That's how frequently that is. So Frost Breath, extremely accessible. Obviously you don't need a Strangle Gasp, obviously you don't need a Mage Blood. Those are all cool things, and everything else is using rares. So it's a rare build. It's really easy to get going, and it's just like comfy in SSF because you're just relying on a lot of the fun framework that is a Juggernaut. A precise technique Iron Reflex build you can get Unwavering, but there's kind of no point because you get it for free from Jug, but get a bunch of charges and you hit things, and it's kind of like a very vanilla build, but it's cool. So that's kind of what I'm hoping to do, is something in that vein. If you check Soul Self, there's probably way more. Yes, there is. A lot of people just use Frost Breath. Some people were doing Paradoxica, and this guy looks like he's doing a version with Soul Taker, just, I guess, to take care of his mana, and also to make it so he doesn't have to get the Chill Mastery. It's interesting. I'm not really sure why he's doing that, but that's fine. And he's got a big old gavel called Golem Blow, where he gets to blow a golem. Cool thing with the Celestial Brace, these are the Uber Shaper gloves. No, they're not. Not Shaper. They're Uber Exarch, I believe. This gives you free fortifies, which is cool. Also Mage Blooding, because it's Settlers, and he's been playing for a year. But this guy looks, this is about as vanilla as a dude you can get. Pretty much what we're talking about. So that's kind of, I'm thinking what I'm thinking for here. So that's what we're going to do for this one. Let me grab, I guess I can't. How do I just type it out? Dual Strike of Ambi, Dexterity. Yes. Okay. And that is going to be a Juggernauts. Perfect. So that's done. That's a pretty happy one. I really can't imagine that gets nerfed, but it's not as much a matter of, since 3.26 is like the big unknown, will it get nerfed? I guess it's more, will something super enticing be presented to a Juggernaut? Maybe? I don't know. Scion is the real whodunit, because really, Scion can do anything. Typically, when looking at Scion builds, it's kind of annoying to look at them in trade, because you're going to find a lot of people who are playing supports, like this dude. Is there a way to hide supports? You can kind of hide Victoria's influence, because most supports use Victoria's influence. If you remove that, does that cut out every support? Anybody who doesn't have DPS, I would assume, is a support. Okay. So then it becomes Matua Tapuna, because it gives you aura effect. That also is probably going to be used on every support. We can cut those out. And then we can see who else doesn't have damage and try to cut them out. Okay, this guy is probably not playing a support, but playing a meme build. That's fine. That's good enough. I think we've carved out a chunk of them. So the next conversation becomes, what do we already have? Well, we have a wand skill, we have a lightning strike skill, so we could take wands and remove them. We could take a lightning strike and remove them. Finding Scion builds is always weird, because it's really just a matter of what you're trying to find. Now, this is a funny one. We're going to showcase this for a second. Blood Sacrament is the Relic of the Pact build. Can you build this in Solo Self-Found? Yes. For those who don't know Solo Self-Found or don't know this build as much, why am I going to remove this from the list? Well, the reason is threefold, I guess. You don't need Mage Blood, you don't need Adorned, you don't need them. What you kind of do need is the Apostate, and you definitely do need Relic of the Pact. It's a life stacking build. Life stacking builds really want Apostate. Apostate is an 8% drop, I believe 8%, maybe 6%, but I want to say 8% drop off of Uber Cortex, and Uber Cortex is annoying to farm, annoying to run, and just a cursed fucking boss that you might not hit this 8% for the first month or 2 months. I've actually never hit it in like 30 runs. Now, Relic of the Pact is equally as cursed for different reasons. The reason it's equally as cursed is because this is a wave reward from Ultimatum, and they have nerfed the fuck out of the wave reward uniques. They're so rare. I've run like 40,000 Ultimatum waves, and in recent times I've only found one Relic of the Pact. So that is like as rare as almost getting a Hate Forge. You know, you might find a Hate Forge before finding a Relic of the Pact. This is cursed. So I don't recommend this as a wheel build, and for those reasons, I'm out. So moving on. Righteous Fire. Typically Righteous Fire is supplemental to something else. So let's take a look at what these actual builds are. Are these builds actually playing RF? They look like they are playing a Life ES stacking RF kind of build. Yeah, they're using, so it's a Ivory Tower build which isn't crazy rare. Again, let's check Ivory Tower. Tier 3. So not Tier 2, not Tier 1, Tier 3. Which means you'll probably find one every, I don't know, 6 hours or something. This is like a really goofy way to go about it. But like, I kind of attribute like the tiers to amount of hours spent while high-end mapping. So like a tier 3 you find once every 5 to 6 hours, you know, a tier 2 maybe once every like 15 to 20 hours, a tier 1 maybe like every 20 hours of mapping, a tier 0 is like every 100, loosely. That's like a terrible system, but that's like a good way to describe it. This build is not inaccessible. You don't need a Calander's Touch, you don't need a Mage Blood, never do. Shaper's Touch, very accessible. Ivory Tower, very accessible. A Glimpse of Chaos is like the most common drop off of Trial Master, so pretty accessible. They're using it though for the special one with 80%, but you could use any version. So that's like pretty accessible. You don't need Eyes of the Great Wolf. Dune is incredibly accessible, so that's fine. So like, could you do this? Yes, but would you want to do that? Well, probably no. But why? Why are there so many RF builds for Scions? What made this a popular thing? I have no idea. Yeah, I don't know. RF Scion's weird. I don't really see the point of doing RF Scion, to be honest, so we're going to knock that one off of main skill. Now, if using RF as a secondary skill, it'll still show up. So, Hex Blast, Smite, Splitting, so we're starting to get into things that I don't have yet. Smite is a funny one. So, Smite Scion is gonna be an armor stacker with replica. I already see the replica Dream Feathers. However, I absolutely adore this build on paper. But as you can see, this is a build. This is a real build. This is a build where it's like, okay, you play standard. You know, I always like, I don't want to make fun of trade players too much, even though I do it frequently. And then like some of the quotes I've said is, you know, calling them like glue eaters, which is like an offensive thing to say. Not all bad players, you know, not all trade players are bad, but every bad player I know plays trade. And it's about understanding versus utilizing what you're doing. Like you could use your car, but you know how it runs. Everyone owns a cell phone. Do you know how it works? It's just one of those things where like typically people who play trade might try to emulate a build like this, but don't necessarily understand the acquisition of all the moving parts in a vacuum. So trying to assemble an armor stacker in solo self-found historically has been redonkulous because of these. This is the real thing that holds you back. Is you need to get a very large amount. I mean, the voices are one thing. You could technically run other things, but you really want voices. You have to get a large amount of the aura efficacy nodes, because an armor stacker is, for all intents and purposes, the current iteration or the only existing real iteration of an aura stacker. And aura stackers are you know, if you were ever going to do an aura stacker, Settlers League would have been the one, because it was a year long, and that's how much time it takes to assemble something like this in solo self-found to this level. Is it worth playing an aura stacker outside of making it this level? I mean, if you have 3 passive 6% that aren't I-84, then you don't get the 35%. Is the 25% still worthwhile? Yeah, you could probably do it. So then what it becomes is you're using a version like this that doesn't use a Mage Blood, which means you're probably using a Perseverance, I would like to say. Let's see if we can find somebody using a Perseverance. Rare Belts. Anyone using Perseverance? That's an interesting one. Censure. Okay. That guy's probably a support. Okay, no one's using Perseverance anymore. I'm not totally surprised, but I'm not surprised. Oh, you know, String of Servitudes actually kind of makes sense. That's not bad. The idea of getting 60% Grace Aura effect when you're an armor stacker is kind of real. Yeah, this is actually kind of accessible. It looks crazy, right? Still, some things for early league, but it's actually kind of close. Like, it's a bit of a cursed build still, using Replica Dream Feathers to armor stack. You also want things like Awaken Multi, which is rough. But yeah, this is like kind of close. This is like something in the realm of possibility. Maybe we just go for it. I haven't had a chance to do something like a massive build project. Doriani's is another variation that is like equally niche, but yeah, armor stacking Smite is crazy. Only a psychopath would put that in their build wheel. Alright, we're going to put that in the build wheel. Let's do that. That's wild. We're doing it. Yeah, that's wild, but we're doing it. There's... Yeah, that's crazy. Alright, we're doing it. I've decided. Is there anyone playing different variations of Smite? They're all doing Val Smite, aren't they? Maybe there's someone doing a non-Val Smite version. Some people don't do Val Smite. Some people might do a different kind of Smite. Regular Smite? What if we cancel out Smite? Any other Smite's versions? Smite of Divine Judgment. Weird. Alright, so it looks like they're all just doing Smite. Regular Smite. Or Val Smite. I like Val Smite also. It doesn't really matter. The reason it's harder to do Val Smite, I guess, is because you really want 21. Scaling up, the whole thing is you're getting a ton of flat from Smite. And the higher level, the higher the flat, so scaling that up is kind of important. Fuck you, I'm not using a tincture. Yeah, that's a crazy build, though. Alright, we'll do that. I'm a little crazy, I'm a little kooky, you know? When in Rome. So we'll do this version. We'll do that. That's crazy, though, but we'll do it. So this is going to be Smite Armor Stacker. I'm using armor with a U because it's British, isn't it? So, okay, we've already went over the ambidexterity. We've already run the Smite Armor Stacker. The other thing I've got planned is Tornado of Turbulence. This is a fun build. This page doesn't exist anymore. Why are you fucking me? You know? Why you gotta do it to me? Tornado of Turbulence, Inquisitor. This guy's pretty good. Yeah, life stacking Tornado Turbulence. That's the one I want to do. So that's a life stacking build that uses Tornado Turbulence to do just a bunch of fucking damage. And it's, yeah, pretty fun, pretty cool. Connect Bolt to Fragmentation. Yep, page isn't found. Alright. I guess it's because Necro Settlers ended. Am I doing a Deadeye for this one? Okay, Deadeye. This one's pretty straightforward again. You don't need a Nim. This is like a crazy person build, but... Yep, Connect Bolt to Fragmentation as a Deadeye. This one's pretty cool, I think. I just like how Connect Bolt to Fragmentation feels. To me, it just feels the best because it changes the most, so... Just doing some sort of... It's like basically a Fizz Wander that converts to cold. So, it's really like a bog standard build. I'm just doing it because it's... I've played Power Siphon so many times, it's just fun to do something different. The Hrimsorrow Cold Exsanguinate, this is a very established build. It's a crit Cold Exsanguinate build that just basically converts all your Exsanguinate damage because it's just like a great conveyor. It's like the white rice of skills, basically, right? So, Fizz spells are the white rice of the skill game when it comes to converting it. They're the best carrier for any sort of DPS you want to do. Nothing does a better job of just carrying your DPS than a Fizz spell. So Exsanguinate feels the best of the Fizz spells because it has such reach. So you just ignore the Fizz dot portion effectively, and you're just going for the fact that it has a lot of flat Fizz. Hrimsorrow, Heat Shiver, triple dipping. Tons of damage, Trickster feels good. That's the build. Lightning Strike Slayer, I'll go over for whatever reason. But it's your basic attack tribrid, you know, multi-striking type build. It's kind of like Ambidexterity. It's a strike build, but you just get a big claw, slap, slap, slap. Nothing too fancy. It can do all content in the game. Slayer's really strong. Leech, it's tanky, it's fast, it's good. It's got decent clear. That's all there is to that. And then this is another fun passion project build. This build has been around forever. EK, Ethereal Knives, Ignite, Prolif. So we start with Obliteration, but when you drop Oblit, you eventually probably go to a Bow, is like pretty standard. This guy's got a Wand and Shield, but the basis of the build revolves just around Gloomfang being so good with EK. It gains so much out of EK. It gains Leech from Chaos. It gains extra Chain, extra Prod Speed, tons of extra damage. So Gloomfang plus EK Ignite, super, super good. This is like a cool guy version. EK of the Massacre is the one that gives it the circle, so it feels even better. Just a really fun mapping build as an Ignite build. Not great for bossing, but it's super fun for mapping. You can make yourself a pretty easy, actually, a quiver like this that just has a bunch of gain mods, slap on a Widow Hail, and holy shit, that's a ton of free damage. So something like this is pretty easy to honestly assemble. You don't need a Headhunter, you don't need to March the Lead, you don't need Forbidden Flesh and Flames, but, you know, Skin of the Lord, Skin of the Loyal, super good. Polaric Devastation, you just can farm it out pretty easily. And then Gloomfang is like, I think a tier 2 drop. Let's see, Gloomfang is tier 3, even better. Okay, so you'll probably have that in the first couple days of mapping in the league. And yeah, it's a fun build. It's a really fun build. And we already went over the armor sector. So that's like, this is like the basic kind of spiel I have set up for what I'm thinking, but obviously it's all subject to change. So this is my pre-wheel discussion, post-planning, meta, whatever, and maybe none of these builds exist in 3.26, but I want to make something just like to go over where I'm thinking and what's going on. So this is kind of my pre-wheel planning party, behind the scenes think tank type video. And I'll see you guys in the next video, and hopefully we get some on the patch day. We have a lot to look at, and if these builds aren't changed or there's nothing else that's new and enticing, you know, then that's fine. But some of the stuff I really don't want to change, I would say, are like those 4 builds. I'll mark as, oh, there's one more. What fucking color did I choose? This? Yeah. Who are these 2 fucking things? Those are gone. Those 4 are the ones that like I would like to keep, and then those middle 3 are kind of subject to change. But I would say like these middle 3 are some of the more fluid classes to have ascendancies for, so it seems fine. But yeah, that's it. So I'll see you guys next video. Let me know what you think or what you're planning, even though nothing matters until patch notes and everything's bullshit. But look forward to the reveal. Look forward to patch notes. I'm Mathew Lighty. Have a good day. Bye-bye.